All right, guys. Welcome to the second episode of The Stash with First Responders Friday. If you were here the first time, you joined us with Nick. He's a buddy of mine, firefighter in Seminole County. Talked some really good stories, gave some tips and stuff. And so today we got another friend of ours, was a realtor with us for a little bit here at Heiser, but this is Raheem. Raheem is currently a police officer with the city of Winter Park. And he just wanted to come in here. We wanted to talk a little bit about and see if he could just give us some insight. And so before we get into any of the policing and City of Winter Park and all that stuff, you actually kind of have a interesting backstory as to how you got where you are currently. So if you want to go a little bit about that, because I know you played professional basketball for a little bit, and you could kind of introduce yourself in that and start talking about all that.
All right. So I originally from South Carolina, played basketball at college at Southern Mississippi, and then I went on to play pro for a few years.
Yeah.
I got my first stint in law enforcement up in South Carolina.
Okay.
Really enjoyed it. Went back to playing basketball overseas, and then when I kind of got down here to Florida, I was like, you know what, I want to try something different.
Yeah.
I met Brian, got into real estate. Started doing it, had a few closings.
Yeah.
It was going really well, but something just told me hey, let's get back to law enforcement. I really love the job. I love the career.
Yeah.
And so, I started with Winter Park last year, and just over a year now with them, and I'm loving it.
You feel like that year went fast?
So fast.
Yeah.
I mean, there was schooling. I had to go to the police academy.
Yeah.
And that took almost the entire year. And then I got started with them. I had to go through training with them at the department.
Yeah.
And then now I'm out by myself on the road. So.
And I know you were doing real estate for a little bit. You're doing both. Yeah. And so that was funny because that was kind of how we met was you going through the same program that I was going through. And it was funny the conversation we'd have about it because you would talk at times about how you'd be like, I don't know if this is going to get you in trouble or nothing. But
no.
Maybe answering some phone calls while you're in Winter Park when things are slow and just trying to find ways to do both. And I feel like that's kind of the grind, to people that aren't able to successfully do it full time, real estate specifically. You have to be able to slide it into every free second that you have. And I think respectfully because you have a family as well, and so from your perspective, doing both of those, that's draining after a while.
It was so draining. And I ended up deciding to get out of it just because I felt in law enforcement, you have to give so much of yourself to being out in the public, dealing with so many different situations on a daily basis for 12 hours, sometimes longer than that. And giving so much of myself to that as well as my family and to real estate, I was just pulling myself in too many different directions. Yeah. So, but ultimately, like I said, I decided to get out of real estate and focus more on that so that I wasn't pulling myself in too many different directions.
That's never a decision you look back on, is it? You're probably happy that you made that choice every day of the week.
Yeah. Honestly, it's made me a lot happier, made me a better person. Yeah. Just because I'm able to focus more on myself and my family. Yeah.
No, I feel you though, because I was doing both for a little bit, and being able to try to run 2 full-time jobs, as well as being present in the family in general. Because we got a little one on the way. We got a little girl coming in April, and I would not be able to do it, man. It's
tough.
It's hard now,
tough.
And being able to focus on just the house. We have a couple dogs, and my wife. Being able to have a newborn in the house, doing both at once. And I know obviously, she's a couple years old.
Yeah.
Right?
So my daughter's 2. Yeah. She's 2, going on 3.
So I'm sure that it is slightly easier for you because you're not going through that the hardest time of it now. Yeah. But I mean, I'm with you, dude. Being able to do both of those, focusing on family, being able to put your time where you want it to put it, is just, it's hard to do. Yeah. So I mean, I fully respect that. And now, focusing on Winter Park. So we're at a year in Winter Park. Yep. Do you feel like you enjoy where you are right now at the city of Winter Park, or do you feel like you want to go somewhere with it?
So I'm absolutely loving where I'm at with Winter Park. I'll be here for a long time. Okay. I mean, I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah. And there are other aspirations that am looking forward to with Winter Park, as far as being with the SWAT team, moving on possibly in the future to being a detective, and kind of going from there and kind of seeing where it takes me.
Do you feel like the first year has been has it been crazy at all? Do you have any kind of so my perspective, to be completely honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
as a police officer in the city of Winter Park, I feel like it's quiet. Not
So,
that like there's not anything ever
mm-hmm.
happening, but I feel like it's probably quiet compared to some other areas in
Yes.
Orlando.
So we are a smaller department.
Yeah.
So we are, Winter Park. I mean, you see the citizens, you see what we have here.
Yeah.
So we don't deal with as much as the bigger departments deal with.
Yeah.
But crime, the same calls, they're everywhere. Yeah, the pace is a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
but we still deal with the same things.
Yeah. Do you feel like there are any, like, if we had to go through the first, because obviously the 1 year in Winter Park isn't the only amount of time. You said you started that journey in Carolina.
Yes.
And so, I mean, has there been any differences for you in Winter Park versus when you first initially started in the police force? Like, worse or better?
So back when I first started, that was before all of the riots and all of that stuff, and where law enforcement, the viewpoint on us really changed
Very
after all of that.
spotlight.
And it's when a lot of people in law enforcement started to get out, and then it was really hard for anyone who thought about the career to get into it. And it's still like that now. I mean, there's people who want to get into the career, but they're like, I don't really know, because I don't want to get into something and then be looked at negatively by my friends, my family, or just the general public when they put on that uniform.
Do you feel like it's gotten any better since, because there was, I think, I want to say probably between like 2017, 2018 to like 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
Those were like really rough years. I feel like for like law enforcement in general. Do you feel like it's gotten any better? Like it's eased up at all? Or do you feel like that's kind of the new stigma now?
So it has gotten better, and it's obviously different depending on the state. I mean, Florida, they do a lot for law enforcement. They try to offer a lot of different things to get more people to come into the profession. And I mean, here it's not as big of an issue, but just nationwide, there is still a shortage. I mean, because you have so many departments, so many positions that need to be filled, it's almost impossible to get them all filled.
Yeah. Well, that's something we were talking about a little bit earlier before we started this too, is that one of the things that you feel like it is kind of a struggle sometimes is the fact that you guys can be short-staffed.
Yeah.
And with the amount of zones that you have in the area, you don't always have the ability to put an officer in every zone. And so it makes it really difficult sometimes for you guys to be able to...
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, for you guys to be able to do what you're supposed to do with the expectations that I think some people probably have, because now you're spread super thin and you're getting dragged in multiple places at once. You know, it's going to be tough for you guys.
Exactly. And and when you're kind of bouncing from call to call, every call is different in nature. Not all calls are criminal. A lot of calls are civil, and we deal with a lot of stuff that is neither. And it's just us having to guide someone in the right direction. Because they, for some reason, just can't at that moment. We have to be problem solvers. A lot of the time, and I mean, it's just kind of, it's what we have to deal with. It's what every law enforcement officer have to deal with in every department. But it is very taxing. And we just really ask that the public be more patient, have more like compassion and consideration for us, because I mean, we may go from a call where a kid might have been like drowning in a pool that we had to respond to, and then the next call might be someone misplaced their car, and we have to just help them find it.
I never thought about that.
So it's like two completely opposite ends of the spectrum, and we may come into that call to help the person find the car, and we may be a little heightened. We may be just kind of on edge because of the previous call, that our attitude may come off the wrong way. And we may say something that like we don't necessarily mean that way, but because of the tone and what we just dealt with,
kind of the adrenaline still coming off of the last situation.
It happens like that. And then I think a lot of those situations, when we come in contact with people, that happens, and it kind of rubs them the wrong way, and then they have that negative kind of mindset toward law enforcement after that.
I didn't think about that though. I mean, respectfully, like you guys go into a position with the idea that you're, like you said, you're problem solvers. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to address something and fix something. I mean, they wouldn't be calling you if they didn't have a solution for the problem. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's not always simple problems. You know, and like you said, you could be coming out of a kid drowning in a pool, and then from the adrenaline and the problem that you were just leaving to go face something as simple as somebody lost their car in the parking lot. Yeah. You know, it's unfortunate that people are going to approach the lost car in the parking lot from like an aggressive, where were you guys and why did it take you so long? Not even considering the fact that you may have just left something that was extremely serious and like maybe it didn't have the best outcome. And now you have to just walk away from that to go help somebody find a car in a parking lot. You know, I mean, I never even thought about that. That's got to be tough. One thing I'm curious about is why, like at what point when you were younger did you experience something? Was it somebody in your family that was in law enforcement? What drove you to wanting to pursue law enforcement in the first place?
So growing up, I was on the opposite side of anywhere being in law enforcement. Okay. The neighborhood I grew up in, the city where I was living, we didn't like law enforcement. Yeah. Like we didn't like police officers coming into our neighborhood because it was always trouble. And I was kind of like one of those kids that were in between. I did not like them, but I also didn't love them just because I was in an environment that wasn't like police officer friendly. Okay. And as I grew up, I learned more about the profession, learned more about what they do. And when I was playing professionally overseas, I was like, what am I going to do after this? Because I can't do it forever. Yeah. And when there comes a time where I need to switch careers, what is it that I want to do? Yeah. And that's when I decided after one season that I'm going to try law enforcement out. Okay. So I tried it, loved it, and was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do once I decide to completely be done with basketball. Okay. Now, and this is kind of a tougher question, but do you feel like when you were growing up, do you feel like you had to deal with that stigma with law enforcement and police officers? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely. I was around a lot of people who weren't the most upstanding citizens. Yeah. Did a lot of crimes, and I just kind of never was doing the crimes, but I was always witnessing. I was around. I was in the area. By default, you're present. Yeah, and it just, I knew like that was just something inside of me that was like, I don't want to do that. Yeah. I saw shows and documentaries on what prison was like, and I was like, I definitely don't want to be in there. That's not for me. I just knew what that life wasn't for me. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go a different direction. Which actually, my junior year of high school is when I left where I was from in South Carolina and moved to North Carolina. Okay. And that kind of changed my whole life trajectory right there, and kind of led me in a different direction, a more positive path. For sure. And came in contact with people that were able to help me with that as well. Yeah. Do you have a lot of family in Florida, or is most of them still in the Carolinas? So they're still in South Carolina. Okay. Yeah. My fiance, all of her family is here. Yeah. Which is my family now. Yeah. Because I mean, we'll be getting married next 100%. Month. And it's good to have that support here. Yeah, definitely. They're huge supporters of what I do, and it's been really nice. Yeah. Do you have any family that like, is everyone in your family proud of the choice that you made to like pursue this career? Do you have anybody that's like, Raheem, what are you doing? Yeah, no, I mean, I have those family members that have been like that in the past. They don't say much now, but most of my immediate family, I mean, they know what I do. They respect it, and they have nothing negative to say about it. Honestly, they always call me for help when they have questions, trying to deal with certain situations.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, well, you're in law enforcement. Like, what can actually be done here?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's nice.
That's good though. That's good that I mean, like, especially with the way the last like 5 or 6 years have been, I feel like it's really nice to know that like it feels like for the most part, like you said earlier, there's really kind of a negative connotation towards law enforcement right now.
Yeah.
And there are just unfortunately some pretty bad seeds out there that kind of ruin it for everybody like you that are trying to just generally do good for the public and be that like resource that you say you are. And so it's good to have that like that family support from cross state lines. Like, you know, they're not here to see you do what you do, but they trust and they respect and they appreciate it, what you're doing.
Yep. Exactly.
What does like a normal day look like for you now? Like when you going in on the clock, 12-hour shift, like what does like a normal day for you look like?
So, I mean, we have what we have, it's called AP. It's an area patrol. And the citizens of Winter Park can request them, and we go to certain areas that have been requested. We check the areas out. We check homes just to make sure they're safe because a lot of people go out of town for long periods of time.
Yeah.
So we make sure that their property hasn't been broken into and things like that. Other than that is we're enforcing traffic throughout the city of Winter Park, and we're responding to calls for service. And as you know, like a lot of the roads in Winter Park, very low speed limits, and we have a lot of people that come to the city to enjoy our restaurants, entertainment, and just being in a nice area.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have a lot of people that are like walking around enjoying that. And so traffic is one of those big
huge
things that
safety problem,
we
especially
focus
on Park Ave.
Yeah, definitely.
Tons on Park Ave. I feel like you guys get a lot of calls in that area just because of how many people are on the street, like just walking up and down the streets and.
Yeah, we get a lot of calls from Park Ave.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I know earlier you said you love Winter Park, you're never going to leave Winter Park. You did mention that eventually you would like to be able to go through either the SWAT team or a detective route. What does the path to either one of those look like for you?
So I can do either of them with the city of Winter Park.
Okay.
They have a route for both. We have our own SWAT team, as well as we have detectives in our department. Yeah. And once you meet certain criteria, you can put in for those positions, and there's certain qualifications that you have to meet to.
I'm guessing it's like more schooling or like more like I'm. Is there a certain amount of tenure that you have to have with City of Winter Park to be able to apply for either one of them? Is there more education?
So you can't like be on probation anymore.
Okay.
You have to have like a certain degree level, whether it's your associates, bachelor's, master's. Yeah. There's just certain things you would have had to do throughout your time on patrol that kind of shows that is the path that you're trying to get to.
What do you think if you had the option to do either? I know you wouldn't do both, but if you had to pick a career and pursue like a recruiter to retire off of, would it be detective? Would it be being able to be a part of the SWAT team, or like would it be somewhere outside of the city of Winter Park completely?
So SWAT, you can actually do that while being a patrol officer, and you can also do it while being a detective. So it's like one of those things, just because SWAT isn't like a 24/7 thing.
You're not constantly raiding buildings.
Exactly. So you're always on call when you're on, but you're not constantly doing that type of stuff. Yeah. So you can still be a detective, and you can still be on patrol and still be a part of the SWAT team. And then if something happens where there's a call out, then you would just respond to it and leave what you're doing at that time. But I mean, I look forward to doing that and doing it for as long as I can. Yeah, for sure. They do a lot of different things. They have just the tactical advanced training that they have is something that I've always been interested in because being in law enforcement, I want to make sure that I am at the top of my game every single day I come into shift. And being a part of the SWAT team is something that will help me achieve
definitely. Now, like one of the things, so we've talked a little about your family, and that ultimately the reason for pursuing, like focusing on this is something that you're passionate about, but it also made it a lot easier for you to be able to actually just spend time with your family and just be able to focus on that.
Yeah.
What kind of what drives you every day? You know, you wake up every morning, you put your uniform on, you go out, you spend 12 hours patrolling and trying to keep people safe. Like what kind of fire is there underneath that continues to drive you to want to do this every day? Like where's the passion coming from still?
Really just supporting my family.
Yeah.
Making sure my daughter is taken care of. And there's not many people that are willing to kind of give themselves to a random person.
Yeah.
Because we are here to protect and serve our communities
Yeah,
that we
for
work
sure.
in. So if something is happening to one of our citizens, we have to step in. And a lot of people don't think about it, but we have to put ourselves in the way of like any harm or danger to protect a citizen of this community,
Yeah.
whether we know them or not.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like that's something that I look forward to.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a problem with putting myself in a terrible situation if it helps somebody else get out of it.
Yeah.
And that along with making sure my family's good is what drives me every day.
Do you feel like it's a switch that you struggle to turn on and off? Like, are you out like just at dinner or something with like your girl and your daughter, and like something comes up and you're just in normal clothes, like off duty, and like you struggle to like not step in and like be the officer that you're getting paid to be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a very fine line.
Yeah.
That you walk on, just because you are in this profession. But one thing that a lot of officers struggle with is having that separation between work and family.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, but the divorce rate with law enforcement officers is extremely high.
Statistically, I think it's one of like the top 5 professions in terms of divorces. Yeah.
So, and it's because a lot of things that we deal with at work, we take home, and it's like that it's just like never turned off from being at work.
Yeah.
And that is something that I have struggled with, where I take something home and it causes me to like have a certain attitude when I get home, and then it causes issues. But I have gotten a crap ton better with that.
Yeah.
And every time I walk through the door after a shift, I make sure I greet my daughter and my fiance with the biggest smile that I can.
Yeah.
Give them the biggest hugs and kisses, and tell them that I love them. I go decompress in the shower for about 20 minutes, and then I come back out, and then I'm good. But yeah, it's something that a lot of law enforcement officers struggle with, never just being able to turn it off from being on shift. And it's one of those things that we have to deal with.
Yeah. I feel like that kind of ties into, unfortunately, it ties into the first responder field in general, whether it's a firefighter, police officer, nurses, EMTs, like anything. I feel like you are constantly every day putting your life in the backseat to help other people. Yeah. And that eventually takes a toll on you. And so I'm sure that thankfully your fiance and your daughter are like an incredible support system for you.
Yes.
Where you're able to walk in the door, and I'm sure that they, maybe your daughter not so much, but your fiance is very understanding of the fact that in order for you to be able to decompress 100%, like she has to be willing and present to like help you do that as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure that that's a huge support system that you have at home.
Oh, most definitely. And she has been my biggest supporter throughout this whole thing. I mean, from the schedule changes since I started here, with having to go through the police academy, where I'm there every day and not home, and then switching schedules once I got to the department, doing 12-hour nights and then switching to 12-hour days. And the schedule changing back and forth from me being gone all night and then working all day, it was a lot because we have a kid and she has to be to school. There's things that things that have to be done with her that a lot of that weight was falling onto her.
Yeah.
And because I was just so busy or I was super tired and I needed sleep.
Yeah.
But through it all, she was a huge supporter of it.
Yeah.
And now that I'm on like a set schedule and we can actually like figure things out, it's been working perfectly.
Dude, I feel like that's something that people in fields that allow them to be present in households, or like people who maybe just work 9 to 5s, they have their nights, they have their weekends, don't always like comprehend how difficult it can be to be present in the house when there's more than just the two. You know, it's not just a couple. Maybe there's like you have a kid on the way or you have multiple children. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to get out of like the restaurant industry in the first place, because like I had made multiple friends in that industry that had lost everything because they didn't know how to turn it off. You know, you're it's like an 24 hours a day, 7 days a week job. You know, holidays don't exist. You know, like business supersedes life. And like a really good buddy of mine, and this is like the kind of the story that I use in terms of like what ultimately like is the definitive point of what I would never want to get to is a really good buddy of mine went we both were in restaurants, and he'd gotten home from one day, and he was kind of like me, where realistically if there wasn't a lot that he had to focus on, he was just all in work 24/7. And he got home from work one day, his wife and both his daughters were gone, and there was divorce papers on his kitchen counter, and that was like his moment where he's like, I can't do this anymore. And he immediately left. And like, it's those moments that I feel like people that maybe have 9 to 5s are like, now that the remote field has gotten so big, they're constantly working at home. And I think people don't fully realize that there are these industries out here. It's extremely difficult to balance both of them. And so I am super happy that like you're finally in a position where I know you have set schedule now for the most part.
For the most
you're able to be more present. And so like to make it a little more fun, like get out of all the dark stuff we've been talking about. In terms of like community events, you guys are like present in the community for so much. Are there any events that happen throughout the year that you feel like you genuinely enjoy being present for the most? Anything that like kid related or like community events that you just like being there for?
Yeah, so we do different things all year. We do huge food drives. We do diaper drives. We do huge toy drives during Christmas. Our department is like filled with toys that have been donated to us, and we give them out to people in need during those times, and it's a huge thing to people that go without, to be able to give them everything that they need and to be able to enjoy the holidays just like everybody else. We do a Cops versus Kids basketball game, which obviously I'm a huge fan of. My first time doing it was this year, and it was fun. It was so much fun. We got with kids in the community. Had like a full game.
What's like the age range? Is it just like you guys a bunch of like 9-year-olds?
So they range from like middle school and high school age. And then they have like their rotation that they do, and we have ours, and it's fun because they at that particular time they aren't looking at us as police officers or some authority figure.
For sure.
And it's just fun for them to get to know us on that level, rather than like us being in the community and they seeing us doing something else. It was super fun, and obviously like I said, with me having the basketball background, being
Dunking
able to get in
kids.
there and have some fun with them, and then like I come in the gym and they're like, oh my god, like look at him, he's huge. But it was a lot of fun. And I enjoyed it. We take pictures, we give out free basketballs, and I've even had some parents ask me about mentorship for their kids, because they're like, oh, they aren't necessarily on the right path right now, and I would like for them to be able to talk to somebody that can kind of keep their head on straight and guide them in the right direction, especially someone that is in law enforcement, because they already have kind of that negative mindset towards police officers.
I feel like that is like you are that that cop that like you see on those TV shows you're watching, those like family friendly like suburban like dramas that like the cop pulls over and just starts playing basketball with the kids on the side of the street, like, but people need that, you know, like there are tons of communities probably similar to like something that you may have grown up in where it's not a matter of like you're not a bad kid, but you might be just surrounded by poor influence.
Exactly.
And it drives you in this direction of a life that you may have not chosen to live on your own had you not had that kind of community. Yeah. And so like, I mean, I totally understand parents coming to you and asking for some kind of guidance. Like ultimately I feel like that would be like not something to take advantage of, but like that is an opportunity that you would have as a police officer in this community to be able to help those kids. Like there are programs out there I think that exist that don't get nearly enough attention or support from the community.
No, definitely.
To help kids get out of situations like that.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I look forward to every day when I'm on shift is to be able to make some type of difference that is not law enforcement related. Yeah. Where it is just getting out in the neighborhood. I got out in one of our neighborhoods not too long ago and played one-on-one with a kid in full uniform.
I feel like I saw this on like Instagram.
You probably did. I played one-on-one with a kid, and it was fun, and it let them see a different side of
their perception
police
of
officers.
law officers change a little bit.
Exactly. So that was extremely nice, and I look to do that every chance I get. No matter what it is, like if somebody's out kicking a soccer ball, I'll get out and kick the soccer ball with them. Yeah. One thing that I do is I carry dog treats around in my vehicle because people walk dogs
especially out here
constantly in this neighborhood, and so I get out with people all the time, and I'm like, hey, did your dog want a treat? Yeah. Give them a dog treat. I chat with them for a little bit, and it's just like having that interaction really changes the perspective.
Not to like turn a genuine moment into like a potential business opportunity, but realistically, if you're trying to like build a business, walking around with dog treats and trying to brand yourself, connecting with people, bro, you get with someone's dog, you're officially in the door in that person. 100%.
Exactly.
Give that dog a treat first, and then you got them on lock. So that's funny. I mean, that's really genuine though. Like that's like you're not being the cop that people expect to sit on the highway just waiting to pull you over because they got nothing better to do, right? And I'm not saying that that's why cops do that, but unfortunately that's like the stigma that I feel like the connotation that people I feel like have of officers 9 out of 10 times is they think that they're just trying to like hit a quota. They think they're just trying to like pull people over for speeding because they're bored or they had a bad day and they're going to take it out on you. And like that's not what most law officers are, you know?
Exactly.
And so like I think you're doing an incredible job of trying to represent what it's supposed to look like. Yeah. And they're just, you know, people see that and I think that it'll change their perception of what it is versus like what they think it is versus what it actually is.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's a myth, by the way.
The quota thing?
The quota.
I know.
There is no quota.
I know. I grew up thinking that there was some kind of quota, and every time I got pulled over towards the end of the month, I was like, gosh, these stupid cops. They're just
it's always like that. But no, there is no quota. At least for nowhere I've ever been, there is a quota. All it does is show that you're active and like productivity. That's it.
For sure.
Other than that, there's no quota.
Because respectfully, like you'll be on the interstate or the highway in like the middle of the night, and you do see those two cruisers parked facing different directions, and they're just chilling, having conversation with each other. And so like you see those people, and you think like those are the ones that are just like they're doing it just for the sake of like hanging out in a car all day. They're not really doing what they're supposed to. Like you're out there connecting with the community and helping people.
Exactly.
Is there a memory over your time in law enforcement so far, like an experience, good or bad, something that you responded to or just had to handle that you feel like is a core memory for you, that you feel like is probably something that sticks out more than the rest?
So, having to go through the law enforcement academy here in Florida, there's an award that's given at graduation that no one knows about but the staff. And they tell us about it at the beginning of the year. And people kind of have in their mind like what their goals are, what they want, what awards they want to win. And so the entire time they're in the academy for the 6 months, they're trying to um, do everything they can to obtain that award.
Yeah.
And one thing that I didn't do is that I wasn't looking to get any type of reward for being in the police academy.
Yeah.
I was just looking to be myself, be the best classmate, be the best student that I could be, help everybody when I can. And at the end of the academy at graduation, I was awarded one of the most prestigious awards, which is the Robert German Award.
Okay.
And it's just, I had no clue that I was gonna get
Yeah.
it. It was that one amongst a few other awards that I got, but that one because it's given to someone who just shows exemplary character, their attitude. Every class, they just set the bar.
Yeah.
And I was given it, and honestly, like I didn't think I would, but like I shed some tears behind it because I was like, oh man, like this is such an honor to be able to get this award and have my name put on a plaque at the school that'll be there forever.
Yeah.
And just kind of leave that mark there as someone who came in and like did this thing. But yeah, that's probably one of my most like memorable moments.
Do the awards of the recognition help you guys at all in terms of like once you, because my assumption is after you get out of the academy, you're not just like handed a job in the police force. And so like I'm sure there's still some kind of application process, but do those awards or anything have any impact on that once you get out of the academy and you graduate?
So here in Florida, there's two different ways you can go. You have people who get certified themselves, and they apply to departments, and then you have ones that apply to departments, get sponsorship, and so they're already working for the department throughout the academy, so they already have a job, which was my case. I was already hired, and they sponsored me through it.
I didn't realize that's how sponsorships work.
Yeah, and so you already have a department, and then you get back with them right after you graduate. But the ones that pay for it themselves and then apply after graduation, no doubt that those awards will help them because it'll be on their resume going into their interview process. And I'm sure the departments will look at it and be like, oh, this person showed this, and this while they were in the academy. That is the type of officer we want to hire. So I'm sure
knowing it goes that way, that makes a lot more sense. That there's this, because I knew sponsorships were a thing. I didn't realize that was how sponsorships worked. I thought sponsorships were strictly just to help somebody get through academy. I didn't realize that they were coming from a department already. So that makes a lot more sense. Okay, and then I know you just outside of this, I know you got your own little I say little you have your social profile that you're starting to build, like this presence of being in the gym and like starting to build more of a creative side. Like I know that's kind of just something you're doing for fun right now. But like talk a little bit, like what would you like to see come out of that? Like where are you hoping to go with it?
You know, like I said before in the beginning about kind of pulling myself in different directions, giving a lot of myself to other people. Me working out is like one of those things that I like to do for myself. And in doing that, I was like, you know what? Like, why don't I just take some photos, record some content, and post it? Not really looking for anything, but I'm like, if people like it, they like it. I have people that ask me questions all the time about stuff, where it's like workouts, diet, any type of supplements, and it's like, well, I know a lot about this stuff. So like, why not be able to just dish it out when people ask for it? But yeah, I'm just having fun with it, honestly. I love working out. I mean, I worked out right before I came here. So I still got like pre-workout running through my system right now. But it's I mean, it's just something that I love to do. Fitness has been a huge part of my life for such a long time. And I was always so skinny because I was trying to stay light for basketball. And now, I don't know if you saw my profile, but it's like I have like the road to 280. And right now I'm 260. So I've gained 10 pounds from when I started. But yeah, I got some ways to go. And I'm just looking forward to sharing the journey with everybody else.
Man. You're a resource that like naturally you're gonna become to other people because of your knowledge of it, because your passion for it. And it's not a passion that you have professionally. It's just a passion that you just enjoy. Like you said, you just enjoy doing it. People have approached you. People ask you questions. You're like, why not? Like turn myself into like more of a wealth of knowledge for people.
Yeah, exactly.
And then one of the other questions that I have for you is just if you spending the amount of time you spent as a police officer in law enforcement in different states and different communities, what is there any kind of like public knowledge that you wish was more common sense, or like as like maybe a homeowner, or just or anything like advice that you wish was more common sense or more known to the public?
Well, I would just say for real estate purposes, make sure you vet where you're buying a home. But you can't ever come into a neighborhood or a city, and because of history of that city, like a Winter Park,
for sure,
you can't think that there's not crime.
100%.
And that is one thing that I've dealt with a lot in the city is a lot of people think there's no crime here. And I'm just like, crime happens everywhere. Yes, the rate is lower, but it still happens. So if something happens, you can't say, oh, well, this is the city I live in, this shouldn't happen. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a great city to be in. It's a great city to work for. It's a great city to live in. The citizens are amazing. So, yeah.
I think it could be on the pricey side. I think that's why some people don't like Winter Park's not cheap at all. But I think people look at that and also assume that it's steering away some of that crime that you're talking about. It's just it's an expensive neighborhood. There can't possibly be
Exactly.
I've only been in Central Florida. I mean, I haven't been here. I've probably been here 6 years now. From my knowledge, from my understanding, Winter Park and College Park were both like trash holes like 10, 15 years ago.
Yes.
Were horrible.
Yes.
And so that residual is not just going to go away completely.
Yeah.
And there are still parts of it where like, it's one of the things that I think most people, like if you've lived in Central Florida for a while, you're going to know this a little bit better, but the real estate world in Central Florida is so crazy because you can have a like multi-million-dollar home sitting next to like a foreclosure like shack on the same street. It's very rare where you go into neighborhoods or communities and they're extremely similar. And I think that's one of the perks of Winter Park is, for the most part, the real estate is very similar. It kind of goes in line with each other, but I think that's also why it's so expensive, is because of where it is and the similarity behind it. But there is no perfect neighborhood, perfect community, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of what you just said about the having like a multi-million-dollar home and then it's next to like a shack. If you look at everything west of Park Ave, you have that. And it's because 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't the best neighborhood back then. There was a lot of crime, and it was a different era for the city, but a lot has changed since then.
For sure.
And now you go over to the west side and you see all of the multi-million-dollar houses that are on these side streets back here, and you also see some of the older homes that are still there. And you're like, oh wow, like, but again, it's all changing, and it's changing for the better. So.
I think people think or hear Winter Park and they think Park Ave, they think Rollins, they think of that. They don't think of Aloma and Cimarron. They don't think of like all of by the bowling alley. They don't think of that whole area because it's a very different version of Winter Park, even though it is still Winter Park.
Exactly.
So yeah, man. I mean, I appreciate you being here today, dude.
Oh, no problem at all.
Appreciate you being a police officer in Winter Park and putting yourself first to try to continue to just keep people safe. It was a pleasure having you, brother. It was always good to see you, man.
Pleasure being here.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Your support means the world to me.
If you have any first responders that you would like to spotlight, let's make it happen. If you would like to buy or sell in our community, or if you ever have any questions about the real estate market, feel free to reach out. As always, take care, guys. We'll see you next time.